Guys, it's officially here. The Yorick nerfs. We're losing an entire 5% AD ratio and ghoul damage. Yes, 20% of the entire total ghoul AD ratio is completely removed now. I'll be honest. Why are they nerfing Yorick the same patch they give him a skin? And why are they giving him a nerf at all? Welcome into patch 14.21, or what I'm going to refer now as this patch as fucking hell. Yorick nerfed, Irelia buffed, Lethal Tempo buffed, the skin is bugged so you only face one direction and you can't control Maiden direction, meaning if you go the skin's actually a nerf. Maiden doesn't even stack Conqueror anymore or proc Malignance. Actually, that's a good thing. You know what? Screw all you AP Yorick players. You guys disgust me. And finally, Shojin's fixed now, so ghouls and maiden damage actually do work. But neither of them stack it, so it's actually really hard to stack for Yorick. You can only use Q and E to stack it, which are both pretty sizable cooldowns. This, in my opinion, is one of Yorick's worst patches in a long time. Maybe even the worst patch in the entire history for Yorick. A lot of times, Yorick has been nerfed in the past, I could admit to a certain degree that he was relatively powerful or strong. An example is when he first got the 10% damage and E removed, we had Prowlers and the insane Pole Breaker, you know. That was fairly reasonable because that was a pretty insane, disgusting combo. And when we got another 10% removed from the E, they did that, but they made E in turn a lot faster so that it was a decent compensation. Now they're just straight up nerfing Yorick's ghoul damage for the same reason they always do, because he's too strong in low elo. Listen, I understand nerfing Yorick in low elos because he's pretty much a sex god down there, you know? That motherfucker has like 50,000% win rate. But could we have at least waited until the next patch maybe before we nerfed him? I just feel like it's a really bad business move to, hey guys, check out this new Yorick skin here. Oh my god, yeah, I can't really try out Yorick. Oh, we're nerfing his ass, by the way. What the fuck? This nerf is overall going to at least nerf all Yorick builds by at least 8%. And if you go build a lot of AD, you can go up to 13% in total damage reduction. This nerf is definitely going to hit lethality more harder since lethality Yorick is very ghouls focused, but also there are quite a lot of random consequences to nerfing the ghoul damage AD, which not only affects lethality Yorick, but it just affects Yorick as a whole in general. For example, one of the side effects is when you go Conqueror, because Conqueror gives you AD as you fight, this AD that you get is going to be worth less for the ghouls because, you know, they're nerfing the AD ratio in the ghouls. Obviously, Conqueror will still be amazing. In fact, it's still going to be the best rune page in my opinion. I think that the best Yorick build and rune page involve both of them combined together. But at the same time, it really does incentivize other runes in my opinion, like Comet or Hail of Blades for example. Also, I see a lot of people think that this is really targeted towards lethality, and yeah, I do admit it, lethality does get the short end of the dick. But Bruiser Yorick is hit really hard at this nerf too. Pretty much every build, especially those that aren't Triforce centric. So if you go like the Shojin Cleaver build, the Eclipse build, it is a huge nerf for the damage. Because guess what? Ghouls are a massive part of all of the Yorick builds. It just coincides that when you go the main build of Triforce, Grudge, Hullbreaker moving forward, it's more Yorick and less ghouls, and that's going to be more important. I also feel like this nerf just kills Yorick's identity more and more. If you nerf ghouls and Maiden, you're destroying what makes Yorick special. He's the necromancer dude of Yorick, and if you nerf him more and more, like if he gets any more nerfs to the ghouls and the E, then he just becomes shit Narcissus V2. Except Narcissus is a lot better, even if he did get nerfed this patch, so Yorick just becomes Narcissus 0.25. This nerf is also going to incentivize items to increase their abilities, like Shojin Liandry's, rather than items that have a lot of AD. So for those that aren't going Shojin Liandry's, Cleaver or Grudge, stuff that doesn't have a lot of AD but give really strong effects, then you're going to be affected quite a lot in damage. So you like stuff like Overlord's Bloodmail, Titanic, just because they're, you know, very focused on you gotta have a lot of AD, gotta have a lot of health to work out, it's gonna be, yeah, you know? Okay, I'm gonna complain more about this change because I'm really fucking irked about this. This nerf is stupid. Why would you nerf his ghoul damage of all things? Listen, I understand that partially because Morons don't know how to right click ghouls, and he's been out for like 30 years. But at the same time, that's not the reason why Yorick is so strong in low elo. You can nerf the damage, the cooldown of his Q, the ghoul's damage, the maiden's damage, whatever. You can nerf him damage wise and even cooldowns wise as much as you want. But this isn't what makes Yorick strong. I'm going to explain to you guys the two main reasons of why Yorick is so OP, and I'm going to communicate this not through Yuri lesbians, but this time through Luigi's older brother, Ninetales. Number 1.
Unfortunately, once Yorick's maiden comes out, his skill expression goes down. You don't need any skill expression.
Levels 1 to 5, Yorick's pretty garbage. You can do some cheeky poke of comment or all ends of conquer and ghouls, but most of the time, unless the enemy makes a giant mistake, then you don't really have a lot of kill pressure. But once Yorick hits level 6, Maiden completely flips the lane. You could be in a hard losing position and then now it's completely in your favor and now you have permanent priority in lane, unless you get ganked. This is because Maiden in itself is a very strong source of DPS, it just makes your 1v1 a lot stronger. But the biggest reason of why it's so broken is because it constantly spawns ghoul on every single enemy minion death. This is so ridiculously broken because now you're constantly at Yorick's peak strength, 4 ghouls plus maiden, and you can easily get to the scenario in literal seconds. The problem with this nerf is that it doesn't even address this problem where having maiden and 4 ghouls out is still disgusting. He gets all the priority in the world of pretty much no skill at all, and his kit is really simple to just play and do a shitload with, especially if the enemy doesn't understand what Yorick does. It doesn't address how he's so useless if he has no ghouls or maiden, and this needs to be changed in some way, because low elo players will just pulverize Yorick's skull in at level 5, but then as soon as level 6 hits, boom, they just get mauled and they have no idea why. Number 2.
Unfortunately, Yorick suffers from one major problem, which is that his kit itself is too punishing to verse.
Yorick has one of the most punishing kits in the game. I don't really mean this in the way that Yorick gets anal fisted by any form of CC or champion's ability, which is kind of funny because he has absolutely neither, but Yorick's ability to catch you with his E and W is like no other. He has a very long range projectile that pretty much closes the gap between Yorick and the enemy in an instant, and a mini Jarvan ult on a basic ability. There is almost nobody that's more sticky than Yorick, except maybe some semen. This is a part that needs to be addressed in low elo, because it essentially means that Yorick just has a really simple go button of E that ends in 90% of the enemy's deaths. It's like basically a ranged version of a Garen combo that you can't run away from. This isn't a big issue in high elo because everyone plays champions that has either 30 dashes or just tanks your entire combo. But stuff like Set, Maud, Illaoi, Urgot, Mundo, they're all over the place and crawling around in low elo. And these champions, oh yeah, trying to get out of the cage with those champions is like trying to trying to communicate to me on Discord. Shit's not gonna happen unless you're a cute puppy girl, which is only like 0.3% of the population. These are huge problems with Yorick that need to be looked at, rather than, you know, nerfing Yorick and helping little Johnny at Bronze 3 complaining about ghouls doing 300 damage because he's been ignoring 3 ghouls scratching him at level 11 for 30 seconds. That was a lot of 3s. Now that being said, let's talk about builds and runes and how and the remaining playstyles and what you're gonna do for Yorick this patch. Lethality is fucking dead. Like he's just in the ground from the few games I've played. It's funny because in the previous video, you're gonna hear me say that, yeah, lethality sucks guys. But people found out afterwards pretty quickly that I still played it and I made it work. And I want to clarify something. In the wise words of Luigi's older brother,
skill level of the champion and the player comes into play. So that's when, like, let's take Slogdog for Slogdog's a perfect example of this. He plays split push lethality Yorick, right? He doesn't group. He barely groups. Why is Slogdog able to make it work so well in high elo? He can make it work so well because Slogdog has an uncanny ability of reducing his opponent's mental IQ, EQ, by 50.
And unfortunately, my mind control is no longer enough to beat the enemy. The Yon pressing E and right clicking you to death is no longer outplayable no matter how good you are. I may still be able to lower the enemy's IQ, but who gives a shit when all these enemy play champions that require a total IQ of 0.3. Can you play lethality? Yeah, technically yes you could, but it's very, very, very bad and almost irrecognizable from the first iteration of lethality Yorick we had. Even just compared to last split, it's 1,000 times worth with nerfed Profane, nerfed Grudge, and now nerfed Ghouls. I genuinely don't recommend it, but if you're an insane person, if you love doing drugs, If you love eating out of dog bowls, partying, and just indulging in weird self-destructive behavior, firstly hit me up, and secondly play Lethality Yorick. I guess it's still like pickable. With that said, the bruiser build I recommended in the last video, I recommend more than ever. So far I've tested a lot of stuff, and Triforce Grudge Hullbreaker with the specific setup of TP Ignite Conqueror is one of the most classic Yorick builds, and wholeheartedly, in my opinion, pretty much the only way to make Yorick work right now. Ghoul damage is just dog awful in all of the builds, so having alternative damage sources like Eclipse, Triforce, items that have damage effects are actually a lot more valuable now. I really hope that Riot takes a bigger look at Yorick. Previously, I was hesitant on Yorick's rework, and I didn't want him to be reworked because I thought the way he was designed is quite fair. And honestly, in high elo, you know, he is fairly playable and you can make him work if you're really good. But this past few years, the way they've been nerfing him, the way they just keep reducing his damage instead of addressing what makes him strong and what makes him weak, and how Yorick is becoming a worsting problem in terms of balance, and in turn, it's getting quite awful. I think it's time for Yorick to get a doctor's appointment and to get him checked up. Lethality Yorick has been continuously nerfed into the ground over and over again, to the point halfway dead in the ground now. And honestly, I love Lethality Yorick, it's my favorite playstyle, but even outside of this, Bruiser Yorick is literally is on its last strands. It's barely even playable in high elo anymore. The only way it's viable in my hands is just a full monkey brain dead build that is super one-dimensional and very reliant on snowballing. Even if I watch other really good Yorick players, they are heavily dependent on their team, and it is and Yorick barely plays a role to be able to support the team. It's very pathetic. This isn't a diss to other Yorick players, but it's just becoming worse and worse to try to play Yorick in the way as like a badass necromancer that kills everyone else. And instead, you're just gonna have to be a really shitty team fighter skirmisher with just abusing Maiden's priority all the time. I'll be honest guys, it's hard to make Yorick content as of recent because he's becoming more and more boring to play. It's not fun to play Yorick against these broken insane champions that instead of getting nerfed get buffed, while your champion just gets nerfed. He's turning into more and more of a shell of a champion, and every time I think about the glory days, it's kind of pathetic to look at him now. On the good news and the plus side, I'm gonna do something fresh and new and hopefully return to the daily uploads of gameplay to Slogdog. I want to bring back the classic old montages too that got me into YouTube as well, and even if Yorick really sucks, I really enjoy playing him still. And never mind, I'm on a 10-game loss streak. Fuck this game and fuck everyone in it. And I'm gonna have cute lesbian sex with puppy girls and do drugs. Later!